Yeah.
Guys, for the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Are there any additions, deletions to the agenda? You have anything?
Hearing none, I move we approve the agenda.
I second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
So we're starting off with guest presenters, which is the majority of the audience. So you're welcome to jump right in. We wouldn't want to make everyone stay through our board meeting.
I'm Spear, and as you admitted, and before I do this, first of all, I'm apologizing ahead of time. I told the kid, if I choke up, I wrote a little something for the district, just for the school board, because I'm retiring this year, and it's just been a really special place to me. So I had to write something down. I was hoping that would keep me from getting in my channel, but obviously not. So I just said, after 34 years in this district, I leave with far more than a career. I leave with a lifetime of relationships, memories, and purpose. Thank you for trusting me with the lives of students and allowing me to grow alongside the community. Originally, I thought I was coming here to teach and serve. What I didn't realize was how much this district would teach me in return about resilience, compassion, patience, and hope. The students may not remember every lesson in my classroom, but I hope they remember that they mattered. I may be retiring from my position, but I will never retire from caring about this district and the people in it. I want to say thank you, and I leave with a full and a grateful heart. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Now I'm good. All right, so these guys that are going to present are IE kids, and if you haven't heard of IE, they're a class of juniors, and they take our class. It means it stands for Interdisciplinary Environmental Expedition, and they take our class in the fall and the spring, and they do all kinds of fun things. Today they were out there rock climbing and out exploring, discovering, fire, and the last few weeks, they have done some projects with us, and they were divided into 3 separate groups. We had a third of the class that was with me, and our focus was on our local Whitejuice Creek and sort of just showing how important the creek is to our community and how we have such connection to our creek and want to take care of it. So they kind of did some creative things with that, which we have just one group presenting on that tonight. And then we had a group that was with Mr. Runko, and they did service. So service, just kind of taking care, cleaning up around the school with different things that will serve future generations. And so very, very different groups that we did. But Rima's group, go ahead.
So the group that worked with me, and we each had about almost exactly a third of the students. There's 46 of the juniors in the class. I wanted to say one other thing about that the students have to apply to get in. And so this year's sophomores have now submitted their applications, and because of the amount of students that can go on the bus and on the rafts and in our groups, we're limited to 48 students. And so it's a competitive process and a really amazing experience for these juniors, developing sense of place in this place, learning about recreation, and adventure in our home, as well as environmental science and weaving in creativity and language arts and art. And so the group that worked with me actually didn't just work with me. They also worked with Corinne Dombrowski, who actually is married to a former classmate of mine, who graduated from Sisters High School. It is like you're along through. Lila Dombrowski. And another biologist, Corinne, is from OSU Cascades. She's a biologist that works at OSU Cascades. And we also worked with Jessica Wilkes, who is a biologist at Oregon Fish and Wildlife. And so, plus other biologists in the field from around the region. And so the group that we worked with was monitoring wildlife and the ecosystems at between Indian Ford and Settle, the top of the pass just east of Settle Lake. They'll tell you about it, but they were looking at 4 different sites that are proposed wildlife crossings. And so monitoring what wildlife and vegetation is there, kind of forming a baseline, and they'll tell you about that.
So our first group, you guys can come on up. So these guys were just saying beforehand that the worst part is trying not to laugh at yourself because they made a video for an elementary audience. But I'm gonna let them introduce what they did and then then enjoy.
I'm Ella. I'm Josie.
My name's Will.
And so yeah, kind of like Miss Steer talked about. So we made this video. It's specifically dedicated to the SES kids, like the Sisters Elementary, just kind of trying to educate them about White's Creek, like having that sense of place of why it's so important and why it matters so much and why we think it should matter to them, kind of. And yeah, so this is our video.
It's great.
We all three introduced. Nice.
Certain nature is a huge part of our community, with the mountains and the creek and the trees, and it shapes how we live and what we do.
But that only happens when you actually take the time to get to know them. Places like White's Creek can become sacred, not necessarily in a religious way, but how they play a part in our community. Hey guys, I'm Ella. I'm Josie. And we're the Tree Sisters.
Us well.
We're going to teach about White's Creek, which is located right here in Sisters, Oregon.
Hey guys, we're here at an access point to White's Creek.
Let's go make our way down to the water to learn about the native ecosystem. There are multiple different species of fish that are native to White's Creek. Bull trout are a native species to North America. They earn their name from their unusually large heads. The water temperature needs to be under 55 degrees Fahrenheit for them to be comfortable, and under 48 degrees Fahrenheit for breeding. The red-band trout have a reddish line along their side and black dots on the top and side of their body. They rely on clear and cold water and are susceptible to drought, and this is what they look like, and they live in White's Creek. This is what a steelhead trout looks like, with a red patch on the body and dots on the back. Steelhead trout have recently been returning to White's Creek after nearly 50 years of absence due to irrigation and canalization. This is thanks to projects by the Deschutes Land Trust and Upper Deschutes Watershed Council.
Alright guys, now that we've learned about the fish, we're going to learn about some of the native trees around White's Creek.
This is the ponderosa pine, and it's a tree that's most likely around your house.
A ponderosa pine has clumps of 3 needles. It also can be characterized by its flaky bark that is shaped like puzzle pieces and its distinct smell of vanilla and butterscotch.
This is Manzanita. And really good rated. Oregon summers. You can identify it by the red-orange bark, oval-shaped green leaves, and the small round berries that begin to bloom in the summer. Snowbrush, which you might mix up with Manzanita, but you can tell because the bark is more gray and the leaves are more curled.
This plant right here is antelope bitterbrush. It's a drought-hardy shrub that is all over Sisters, and you can identify it by its leaves, which have 3 distinct lobes that look almost like a foot.
Will, what are all these weeds doing here?
Well, these actually aren't weeds. They're a native plant to Sisters, Oregon called Idaho fescue.
You can identify them by their bluish-green color, and these specific grasses are planted along White's Creek for their restoration.
This right here is the lodgepole pine, and you can tell because the needles grow in bunches of 2 and it has thin, scaly bark. This is a grand fir. It is often distinguished by its height, which can reach up to 300 feet. Also, its flat, glossy needles and the needles that have a citrus-like aroma.
So, there's the non-living factors and the living factors. So now I'm going to teach you about the non-living factors of White's Creek. First, we have the rocks. First, they help the fish with breathing and resting so they can slow down and take a second.
They also slow down the cubic feet per second, or CFS, of White's Creek. That's how fast the water moves, which varies from time of year depending on the snow melt.
Some animals that you might see out of the water include deer, elk, shitbugs, lizards, and various birds. No matter what it is, just be sure to respect it and give it its space. This is a restoration site. If you see one of these signs, make sure to not walk on it and be respectful.
As you walk down White's Creek, you'll notice the scenery begins to change. So make sure to stop and notice the little things, like the small little lowly petstmen. Just like the small mountain chickpea, but make sure to be quiet and respect their space.
Oh, here, Will, there's some trash. Should we pick it up?
Yeah, make sure to pick up your trash, guys.
If you're out in nature and see trash, please make sure to pick it up. But make sure to ask your parent or trusted adult we were with first. And when you pick it up, take it to the nearest garbage can and make sure to wash your hands afterwards.
Dispose of waste properly. Pack it in and pack it out. Utilize toilets and dig cat holes 6 to 8 inches, 200 feet away from water.
Hey, outlaws, minimize your campfire impact, make sure it's completely out.
Outlaws, make sure to plan ahead and prepare. Research your destination and look at the weather and make sure it's good and safe to go.
Travel and camp on durable surfaces and avoid hurting the ecosystem.
Respect wildlife, observe from a distance, do not feed or approach animals.
Leave what you find. Don't move rocks, pick plants, or build structures. Leave it how you found it.
Be considerate of others, respect other visitors, and defend the quality of theirs.
So the next time you're out in nature, make sure to remember the 7 principles of leave no trace.
And think about how you can find your sense of place.
And remember,
It's a great day to be an outlaw.
Imagine by the sea and frolicked in the autumn mist in a land
It smelled like vanilla or butterscotch.
a little Jackie paper after that rascal pump and walked in strings and ceiling wax.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Wow, that was great. That was fully entertaining.
So we are a group of 4 out of 16 who researched around the milepost down the Highway 20, sorry. And we all individually selected a milepost to research and just collect data on from what we had gathered when we went out. And we chose 94.6. I'm Aaliyah. I'm Juliet.
I'm Soren, and then we're missing Lena.
Oh,
today.
yes, we have another. Do we know him? I don't know.
Aaliyah. Here. Press the button hard.
So first of all, this is the map of the milepost, so there's 94.6. I don't think it's marked right now, but there's 94 and then 92 and 90. We're 94.6, which is right there. It's the one that's like most east and it's the closest to Sisters. Our IEP group has been outside for a total of 5 days, observing and recording animals and vegetation at 4 different mileposts on Highway 20, in between Sisters and Subtle Lake. Our smaller group decided to focus on one milepost, 94.6, as we said, to present its data. 94.6 is the closest milepost to Sisters, and it's one of the proposed wildlife crossing locations. This project has been insightful and impactful to all of us, as we have gotten to be outside recording data and seeing the effects that the highway has on wildlife. Especially being right next to the highway and having to cross it, we got to experience a factor of how wildlife feels dealing with it every day. Aside from feeling a deeper connection and sympathy for the wildlife, being outside created a feeling of peace and wonder as we saw beautiful plants and animals. The day we went back to this milepost to conduct a thorough survey, it was a week after we studied the other locations. And after the warm weekend, we came back to plants that had flowered or were starting to, which was especially beautiful.
This is a list of all the species that our entire class collected, not just us, that was down having
Only on 94.6.
Habitat connectivity is the ability for wildlife to move between places in their habitat. It's important to sustain wildlife ecosystems as it grants the ability to move, migrate, and disperse across landscapes. This is affected by human infrastructure like roads, which cut off migration routes. These intersecting habitats, isolation, and less access to resource, it lowers the genetic exchange and variation of species. Biodiversity is essential for ecosystem resilience, survival, and stability, and without it, we risk extinction and lots of problems for wildlife. The wildlife crossings and other efforts to ensure habitat connectivity are essential for our biodiversity.
All right, so for the first for our first station, we researched the east side of milepost 94.6. And then this pie chart basically shows the ratio of different genuses, I think, of animals. So we got like we got birds like here, plants here. And then as you can see, so like almost 50% is plants. So we had a lot of different species of plants from like shrubs, grasses, trees, which is a good amount, good for the ecosystem. We also saw a large amount of mammal individuals, not species. We saw only 3 species: coyote, elk, and deer. But we saw a lot of individual signs of mostly elk and deer. So like we saw like 40 different signs of elk, which are mix of scat, fur, and skeletons. A good amount was from skeletons, which was probably because of the road, so you can see that impact there. Let's see here. We also saw a good amount of like insects, arachnids, and myriapods. Myriapods are like centipedes, roly-poly, those kind of insects. They're not insects, arthropods. So we saw a good amount of those covering all the different niches, which is good for the environment. We also observed a lot of different types of birds, including the like threatened white-headed woodpecker, which is cool to see in the area, as well as a lot of songbirds, some turkey vultures, and some corvids. And then in total, we saw 97 species on this side. All right, on the other side, we saw over 50% like species. We saw one less, we didn't see any coyote signs on this side, so that's why there's a little bit less mammal, but we saw about an equivalent amount of individual signs of the mammals. We also saw less arthropods, so without backbone, so insects, those guys. Which was interesting to see because just like a couple feet away there on the other side of the road, there were significantly more, but this could have also been because we spent more time on the east side than the west side. Let's see here. Oh yeah, we did see more amphibians and reptiles too, just one more, but that was cool to see, probably because it was a warmer day and they were out more. Yeah.
Out of all the mileposts that we observed, the 2 sides of 94.6 seemed the most similar to each other. The vegetation was very similar on each side, with mostly manzanita, snowbrush, bitterbrush, ponderosa pines, and other grasses. The ponderosa pines were medium to small in size and were relatively spread out. We noticed there were logged down logs and branches, which served as habitat for many animals. The land on the east side has a very gradual downhill, getting steeper along the far border. The west side was flat with denser vegetation, creating more protection from the wind, and had slightly smaller trees and more bitterbrush. On the east side, there were more species of every single taxonomic group compared to the west side. This is especially clear for the insects, arachnids, plants, and birds. This shows the clear impact the highway separation has on wildlife, as habitat quality and species can vary a lot due to the separation. Additionally, there have been some recording errors, as our group had gone to 94.6 east on the first day, meaning there has been roughly twice as much time spent on the east compared to the west for our milepost. Regardless, there was still a clear difference between the 2 sides. The west side also appeared more protected, which may account for the reason we found less animal bones, but much more mammal scat there. This could mean that roadkill is more commonly found or preyed on the east side, while the mammals prefer the west side due to the increased isolation there. For example, our group counted 29 individual signs of elk on the west side, most of which were piles of scat, compared to 13 elk piles on the east.
Precautions like wildlife crossings and fences are designed to help deer and other wildlife survive. Report says that if these precautions are implemented correctly, large mammal vehicle collisions can be reduced by 80 to 97%. It's important to keep these species from declining further. Wildlife crossings, while they are expensive, are a necessary investment to offer a safe passage for mammals and preserve wildlife biodiversity. In the US, there are around 120 million miles of road, and about 83% of all land here is within less than 1 mile of a road. This has a tremendous impact on wildlife as well as people. There are roughly 2 million wildlife collisions annually on US roadways, and 90% are mammals or involve deer, which accounts for an estimated 2.3 to 5 billion deer lost. Deer are primarily reported species that are involved in vehicle collisions, but there are a lot that we don't see, like the insects and a lot of the wildlife, like birds, and just smaller animals that are harder to report, which I think is a main reason we need a wildlife crossing, because there's a lot that we don't think about, and I think it would be very important for them to have a safe haven. East of Bend, there's been around 61 decline in mule deer since 2002, which is kind of insane. And though again, deer are the only ones that are being primarily recorded, if we were to know about the insects and all the other wildlife, I think it would have a big impact too.
Thank you.
So this is our proposed wildlife crossing that we constructed out of some popsicle sticks, some foam, and some moss. If you want to talk about it.
So the main reason we chose an overpass was for larger mammals. There are underpasses, but those mainly go for small animals like lizards, squirrels, rodents, bobcats, like smaller individuals. However, since we saw such a large amount of larger mammals such as elk and deer in this area, we thought it would be better to have an overpass, which is better designed for the larger mammals. Yeah, and then we saw, and it would be nice to have some of the same foliage and rocks and like all the same structures that they would have naturally in the wild on the pass too, to make them feel more comfortable, especially for the smaller animals. Yeah.
And I think that the pass doesn't have to be a crossing for them all the time. It can also be a home, and it can be somewhere where they can find comfort. So yeah, we want to make it as comfortable as possible.
You guys we're just gonna quickly show the other top things.
Great.
All the rest.
Yeah, I think you do this.
Yeah.
All right, I'm Kia Grummer.
And then I'm Gage, and we're missing 2 members of our group, Tabor and Jessica.
Yeah, they couldn't make it, but so this is the north side, and this is right here is the south side. So we really wanted, there are certain factors that we wanted to implement when making the crossing, like for example, how the ecosystem transitions from dense to less shrubbery and more rock. And then we also wanted to consider how sound traveled through the highways. So we put a lot of trees on this north side and didn't need as much here because of how the ground kind of like blocked a lot of the sound. And then we also wanted to consider what animals can really make this home. So for example, we put a lot of stumps and rocks for the ability to have insects and herps, which is basically bugs, spiders, and like arachnids to live here and like find a place they can find like live off of. And then we have things like a ponderosa pine, some mushrooms, some bitterbrush, some snowbrush. We have some other animals that we saw, like a Rocky Mountain elk, and amphibian, and then some lichen, and then rocks, and some more other like coyotes, black carpenter ants, and then mule deers. Nice.
Very nice.
This was the model for milepost 94. I wasn't part of the group myself, but they couldn't make it, so I'll be presenting for them. As we can see on here, there's not as much grass on the bridge itself, which is a good thing. So any forms of wildlife could make it across, but not make it into their home to disturb other wildlife. And there's also some other pros and cons, like the fact that there's no fence on the side, so no wildlife will get caught in the fence. But the cons are they may go around. And there's a lot of similarities, like the fact that it's an overpass, so it can help a lot more of the mammals and smaller creatures rather than an underpass where they can't fit. That's all I have to say.
Our groups was a lot of the same idea. We have the overpass because so the overpass because it attracts more wildlife than the underpasses. This is like kind of Christmas garland for like the ponderosa pines. They attract like the pygmy nuthatches, yellow-winged warblers, mountain chickadees, and stuff like that. They also provide cover for the mule deer and Rocky Mountain elk and chipmunks. We also have antelope bitterbrush, Idaho fescue, and greenspan zanita for the birds to create nests out of, and also to provide cover for the insects like beetles, spiders, other insects like that. And we also have logs from wood chips, and the fence, our fence, we decided to incorporate because it's a dark color so the animals will see it. But it will be smaller if we need it in real life. Yeah, mostly the same stuff.
Thank you. That's some questions.
Okay, yeah, does anybody have any questions for them?
I had one. So you mentioned encountering the remains of large animals around 94.6 at other mileposts. You know, how did that compare between each milepost? Where there was 94.6, did they have more than the other locations, or were they about equal? What was the findings?
94.6 definitely had the most abundance of individual signs.
Bones.
Yeah, the bones.
Yeah.
Okay.
For milepost 90, we found a lot of fresh, more recent bones, especially related to mule deer. We saw some with even the tendons and still being a bit red. So I think that we found those mostly on the south side, and we saw a lot more than like usual. And I think that it was kind of maybe equal to 94.6, but I'm not really certain of the exact number.
When you get out of town, there's definitely some evidence of roadkill, and then it kind of drops off for the kind of middle milepost. But then once you start getting higher and higher up the pass, then it definitely starts picking back up again. And you start seeing way more evidence of bones and roadkill.
Yeah, just to add on to that, milepost 92 is a little bit more of like a midpoint between them. Like Soren mentioned, his milepost had the most remains, while as it goes up, it starts to lose more signs. Like milepost 92 only has like just a couple of rodent bones, and it's only on one side too. So that's a sign of just it getting shorter as you go further.
Was there any consensus between all the teams about if proposed project was to go in, which one would have the biggest impact? Not design, but which location would have the biggest impact? Excuse me.
I think 94.6 would. We had the most abundance of animals overall that we recorded. So yeah.
Were those mileposts, like, who designated that you guys studied those? Was like the ODOT or someone already had identified those as places that may have?
Yeah, I can speak a little bit more. So this is
part of the Bend to Subtle Lake project, which is led by Central Oregon Land Watch. And so these 4 sites were selected from a group of, I think, 11 sites that a feasibility study was conducted for. And these 4 were selected as priority from like the larger coalition for Bend to Subtle Lake. And so we've been putting a lot of focus into studying this area. So right now, OSU and ODFW, the Oregon Department of Fish and Wildlife, we have 60 cameras, all camera trapping the wildlife used in the area, as well as we're looking at ODOT's data on deer vehicle collisions and things like that. So that is how they were selected, was through the coalition.
Thank you all. Yeah, thank you. That was
Great work.
great work. You guys.
Thank you.
Yeah, you're more than welcome to stay if you want.
Yeah.
They don't throw sometimes. Deer and elk are not.
Good to see you.
Same.
They don't shimmy.
Yeah, exactly.
There now.
Yeah. Why? I figured I'd bring them in. I had them.
Stretch out.
Yeah. They're all piled in the corner. I don't believe we have any community comments. Oh, we do. Yes, is it you?
We do.
All right.
I haven't signed that.
Thank you.
Hi, my name's Steve Swisher. I live at 69339 Oxio in the Tollgate subdivision for the past 30 years. And at this point, I want to talk about naming of facilities at a request from recently to rename an auditorium after a particular individual. I have served as a superintendent for different districts, and this has been a contentious question in at least 3 of them, big time. And I'm encouraging you as a board to really think about not naming any facilities after a particular individual. If you look at Sisters' long, rich history, starting in the 1880s as a school, and starting through today, there have been countless individuals that have had significant impact over time. Pick an era and you will find individuals that made a real difference and had a long-lasting impact. Some maybe more than others, but again, I think it becomes extremely difficult to make those value judgments about which individual might have had more impact on the community. As we look currently, we have Reed Field, football field and back area name. And Jeff, you were on the board at that time. I don't know what the process was at that point, because I think I was for the county working then. But at that point, that's the only official one I know that we have. We have another facility that has the appearance of being named, and that's the auditorium at the high school. There's a really nice plaque that Rod Morse put together with a couple of individual names on it. And if you were to walk up and into the auditorium, you might think that the auditorium has been named. But I know for a fact that there was no process that went on at that time for that to occur. And in fact, there may be more appropriate places for those kinds of things. The individual that was wanting to name the auditorium for another individual. Hall of Fames, picture galleries, those kinds of things, little explanations, in my opinion, would be more appropriate, including even changing maybe the location of the plaque at the auditorium currently there So it doesn't give the impression of being named for any individual. It could be in the arts hallway, it could be in a Hall of Fame gallery, etc. So those are my comments on that topic, and I don't know where you guys are at in thinking about it, but I just wanted to share my view on that and encourage you not to name any facilities after an individual.
Yeah, thank you. I don't want to speak for anybody. I think we're all on the same page. And that request has been responded to.
But I do encourage recognitions of the fame, spoke, absolutely, that kind of stuff. So,
Absolutely.
yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you, Steve.
Okay.
Asa, this is Kellen. Can I comment too from virtual, or did I have to put my name in ahead of time?
I think you let him know.
Yeah, go right ahead. You have 3 minutes. Can you state your name and address, and you have 3 minutes.
You got it. My name's Kellen Klein.
Oh.
My address, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yep.
Okay. My address is 258 West Heising Drive in Sisters, and my daughter's in 2nd grade. Some of you might know me as executive director of C4C, but I'm here today exclusively with my parenting hat on. I wanted to comment on some of the, and Asa and Eric and Kurt probably know where I'm coming from on this because I've already chatted with them. So hopefully these comments don't come as a surprise, but wanted to talk about some of the recent concerns around indoor air quality following the recent prescribed burns. I think it's clear to assume, or easy to assume, that these types of situations are going to become more frequent with threats of wildfire. And recognizing that, I would encourage the school district to consider developing a policy around indoor air quality, much like it has for outdoor air quality. These circumstances might feel few and far between, but one thing that surprised me was when I learned that there actually are no indoor air quality monitors in any of the schools, which in conversations with other parents led to some concerns and confusion around what was actually driving decision making related to when school was allowed to be in session, when kids were encouraged to go inside versus outside, how it might impact those that were more vulnerable. I don't pretend to be an expert in indoor air quality. I don't, and I know that these decisions can be very complicated when it comes to things like, is school safer than home for some kids? What is outdoors actually worse than indoors? Is indoors worse than outdoors? But I think a more consistent policy that was driven by actual monitors or data, other forms of data, would make it a lot clearer for parents and families and also instructors to know how kids were being kept safe and where those decisions were coming from. I know that trust between the school district and its parents and other instructors is what's most important for you, and I think that those types of formal data devices would make this process a lot clearer and less confusing for parents. And I do have a background in environmental health and sustainability, and I know both myself and other people in this community would be happy to help support the school district in developing those policies and looking for data sources if helpful with that. My cursory research seems like this is a pretty nascent area actually for a lot of school districts. I didn't find much in my online research around indoor air quality policies, so I think there's actually also an opportunity for Sister School District to be a leader in this realm. I'll pause there, but would welcome further conversations with you all in the future if time permits. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Yeah, but we are clearly in the
Yeah.
process of dealing with this, and it was kind of a wake-up call for us to have some crazy numbers that we really weren't sure we ought to believe. But we are gonna move forward, I think, and make some positive changes in our schools, and it was a wake-up call.
Do you want to speak?
Yeah, I think we should wait until, I mean, we're still tweeting comments.
Yeah.
Follow the agenda, we can have a dialogue about this later in the board of business.
Okay.
Sure.
Just to follow the protocol.
Absolutely.
But thank you, Kellen, for your comments.
Yeah, and apologies, I have to go pivot off to kid duty, so I can't stay around for that dialogue. But I'd welcome the chance to follow up with you all later, and I'll read the meeting minutes. Thank you again.
Thank you. Sherry?
Years winding down. Staying afloat.
That's good. I wanna just comment a little bit on the appropriations page. In the general fund, the 3,000 functions, enterprise and community services. It's getting a little bit low, so next month I'll probably bring a request to transfer some money to you to make sure we don't overspend that appropriation.
So
So
what's been driving that?
Yeah.
we didn't budget enough. It's that is the budget for where the payments are made for the Medicaid match for the max surveys that we then get reimbursed for and deposited into a revenue code, but the expenditure has to come out of the expenditure, which is in a 3,000 function. And
So how far off do you think we'll end?
I think we probably are probably about 15,000 is what I'm guessing. I would need to look and see if we paid two surveys or just.
And to be clear, MAC, the fan function is a cost neutral function. This is more of an accounting mechanism. They are completely funded by the MAC Foundation, the reimbursements and or donations. So just to be clear, it's not, this is more just an accounting function, not a impact on the general fund.
Yeah. And it will just move from probably the instruction, the 1,000 appropriation level. We'll just probably take however much we need and move it from that budget to the 3,000 budget. And yes, you don't see the revenue coming in that offsets this on this sheet, but it is.
And it's always equal?
Yeah.
The revenue coming in is
Yeah.
always equal?
Yeah. Okay. We just have to pay that expense up front, and we have to pay our expense through an expense account and receive our revenue in a revenue.
Was there a reason that we, as we just finished our budgetary meeting, why was there a reason that we sort of missed the mark on that?
It's kind of been, the last couple of years, the mark has been missed on that, and that's me looking at history. It seems like over the last few years, our MAC revenue has increased a bit. So the admin fee for MAC is based on the revenue, and that's. I
just met with a fan, Julie Likey, who's the executive director of FAN, about that protocol and how we might even help that more in the future, which could create an issue for Sherry. But it's really about how we deliver communication around services that Medicare, Medicaid supports. And if we can document that, we get more money from them for it. So we chatted a bit about there's things we can do that could increase what we call claimable hours from staff to help support families or staff that might be accessing those services. So it could continue to go that direction based on the success we might have.
And that's a good thing.
With that.
I mean, this is.
Yeah.
Although I hate to have to ask to move money, it's really insignificant.
Do they reimburse us right away or?
No.
No, is it
They
a
do
lump sum out
They
a
are
year?
slow.
Okay. I'm just curious, and then it doesn't come directly back in here and you have to refund
No,
it.
it goes into a revenue code and you can see
Yeah.
that in the budget, you can see where that comes.
And then do you refund it at the end of the year? Is that what you wait for us to? I'm just curious, like, cause it's.
We get billed by the ESD and have to pay them the admin fee portion of it up front.
Right.
When we get the funding for the surveys, what we've earned, we get the full amount, which pays the admin fee back. And it funds, the rest of it funds FAM and goes into the FAM, But that is the problem, they're a little, it takes a while to get like, sometimes we cross years getting funding.
Oh, okay. That's
But
not
we
a
get
little
it. We
while,
always
that's a long
get it.
while. That's what I was.
Yeah.
Okay, thank you. Is there any other things we should be looking at?
I don't think unless you see anything that looks out of whack to you,
So just curious on our 26-27 budget, did we budget more for that one item?
I don't think so.
All right.
I need to look at that.
But it's also, I mean, it's an allowable, asking for transfers allow. I mean, it's
Yeah,
not.
it is.
Right, I get it. It's a pass through.
If it's less than 5%, we don't have to go to the board, but I like to make you aware of it.
Yeah, no.
Appreciate that.
5% of the budget. But yeah, when I was looking at this, when I printed it, I had that some things. But next year.
Yeah, put it on the calendar.
Yeah.
More money.
Put them out.
Anyone else have questions for Sherry? No. Thank you so much. Megan, would you?
I
Go
was
ahead.
just gonna say, we don't have really reports. What we thought is if the board has questions or if the administrators have stuff they want to get on in front of the folks around, just because we had student reports and we have executive session, we know they're gonna do their data reports next meeting.
Okay.
That we just, if there's a burning question, or if anybody has something to share and they can just go down the line, or you can ask questions either way, but not really a formal report out this time, but wanted to give, if there are any questions that would be, that people wanted to ask.
You stole me pictures. Oh, I didn't see them. I don't know if I got them.
Is that for swimming?
Yes.
As per, related to the community comment question, I wanted to ask how the air quality was in all of the schools and during the smoke event this last week.
How it was during the event or now?
Then.
Yeah. It was, you know, in the elementary. We were sitting back there. The morning of Tuesday and Wednesday, when we entered the building, it stunk. But it was cleared out, you know, by 9 or 10 with windows open, and it was fine. But yeah, first thing in the morning was kind of, I don't know what it was, honestly, like as far as a number, but
we don't have numbers.
it was,
We know that.
yeah, it was stinky. I think, and I shared this with Kurt, we had more poor air quality at the front of the building near the office. Backward in the back of the building where classrooms were, it was actually like, I never felt like it was terrible. Our library kind of was a place where smoke gathers for some reason. But yeah, so there's some kind of like air thing going on where I think it kind of.
In that building, we've experienced this. We had a smell that was emanating in that front area. And we had a trap that we filled because we've discovered it might have been some gas in a restroom across the gym. The smell was permeating up in the front of the building. It wasn't anywhere else. And so the airflow in the front of that building, again, we're gonna be exploring that, but it seems to be, there's just not moving the air as efficiently as the other sections. You have the big open space, you have the gym, which is a big open space, so it makes sense that's part of the issue. But it's definitely the front of the building. By the time you hit the academic wing, it was much different. Yeah.
I think it might
schools.
be,
Oh, go ahead, Joe.
go ahead. Might be helpful if you kind of reiterated what you told the group this morning in terms of the decision making that went on that day.
Yeah, I have it to talk about.
Okay,
Yeah,
fair enough.
yeah.
The other schools, any comment about the experience?
It was variable depending on where you were in the building, and then, on both mornings, it's all not like early to mid morning. Like, it was a little bit for teachers who are getting there an hour before the kids, you know, that was they probably experienced some of it.
Yeah, and I would add the first day, Tuesday, we were actually better at the middle school. The smoke kind of looked like it was covering elementary and high school. We're excited to not be in either of those buildings. But you still smell smoke. And then Wednesday, it kind of drifted back our way, and same thing. You can smell smoke in the building for a couple days, and
It still smells smoke in the building.
yeah, we learned some things about cold air returns and campers being closed and different things. So yeah, definitely a learning opportunity, but it was as the wind started picking up, it cleared out. But yeah, you can still smell it.
Yeah, I was,
We
I
were
mean,
through the week, probably, I mean.
even,
wasn't there on Tuesday.
yeah, but even before, even before today with the burn, I mean, the last couple of days, even going into each building, there's still slight smell. I
Remnants.
mean, it's like you're closing a campfire, right? You can smell it for a while out.
Yeah, okay.
So,
Yeah, and I know this is all just anecdotal. I'm just sort of curious, what the experience was. I mean, or what people were experiencing and what the after effects are now. It's no major concerns from my part. That's good.
I mean, well, let's finish with the others,
Yep.
the other reports, and then I'll get into it a little more
Yeah.
detail.
Does do you have anything else?
I'll just share briefly, we've been working on, as the year's finishing up, some transition work from our team's been thinking about our fifth graders coming up. And the fifth grader used to be in the building, and that was a change last year, so we're bringing back the transition experience for fifth graders to come over during the school day before the year's out. So we have a day plan or an afternoon plan for that, with our working with Megan at the elementary school and our fifth grade teachers and our sixth grade teachers and our leadership kids, and parent and evening for parents as well. And working with the high school on getting our eighth graders part of the transition work there too. So just feel like that's an important piece of the middle school, that our kids experience, our ones coming get an experience. I know that schoolers can be create some nervous energy for them, so we want to bring them in and get them to feel for the building, and also support our eighth graders as heading the other direction. So school is doing that.
Great, thank you.
Yeah, I think we'll have more to talk about in June, but we're trying to focus in this month with, having some Friday time dedicated to having staff input related to just kind of, because we're having a little bit of turnover with some staff members that have been, as you saw Sandra and others, just complete culture anchors for our building. We've got a couple staff members that are leading out, kind of amongst their peers on how we can try to build anew and sustain and keep momentum going, because we've got some huge shoes to fill. So that's part of a bigger conversation around just our school design plan and how we're moving forward.
And I would just add, I think for all of us, just appreciate our staff appreciation week and the work they're doing, and we're all doing different things in our buildings, and that's been fun, and hope our staff are feeling appreciated as we know the hard work that they're doing.
Nice. Absolutely. Thank you very much. Lorna, do you have anything?
Yeah, just a lot of irons in the fire, working on, we have 9 preschoolers that are coming into kindergarten that will be special education. So the next 2 Wednesdays will be full with transition meetings and coordinating care. So we have a seamless transfer when our kindergartners start in the fall. Working on my response to ODE on my cyclical monitoring. They gave me a list of corrections, really just clerical errors, but it's just time consuming things to fix in Synergy on how some of our SPED documents are processed. Working on just some legal issues, some behavior issues. Yeah, it's spring, lots of evaluation for special ed happen in the springtime. But we'll get it all done.
Is 9 a lot?
Yes, yeah, since I've been here, is normal. On a typical year, we have 1, 2, maybe 3 students that we're transitioning. So I've been kind of doing the Central Oregon trifecta, trying to drive to our preschool centers so that at least I can lay eyes on the students and kind of anticipate. It's one thing to like read an IEP or an ISP but actually see a student and how they're interacting in their classroom right now. So I've been trying to send my team out, or I go out and interact with the teachers and just observe the students in the classrooms right now. So yeah, we're getting there.
A lot of work.
Busy time.
Yeah.
Would you like to do your report?
Sure.
Thanks all. Thank you, guys.
You know, I'll comment on a couple of things. I mean, you saw the enrollment report, we got to get back. What I'll say is we are working hard behind the scenes, communicating with families, looking at how do we re-engage some of our families through the Ed Options program. You know, feel like we're having pretty good response in that dialogue. And again, you know, Joe and I were talking about earlier is, you know, it's a weird dynamic of when do they actually start to register versus the conversation and liking what they're hearing and getting positive feedback. And so that's gonna be an interesting one, as we talked about a little bit in the budget hearing. What does that look like? We feel that the conversations are going very well. And we feel that we can provide the similar service that they're getting. And so we're optimistic about that process. Joe, Amy, Lauren, because also a lot of those kids are unidentified and have impacts and need support. So a lot of thinking around how do we move quickly enough, but also mindfully enough that we're supporting kids the right way. So that's been I mean, good conversations. You know, budget impacts, we're still looking at that, trying to be creative with how we look at services. And, you know, I think we probably gonna start billing not just through there, but Medicaid for other services that we're able to try to backfill some holes to support services to kids. So we're looking at all options as we keep moving forward. And you know, I'll addressed a lot today in the superintendent's meeting, but I will comment on the smoke thing. I think there's it's a really, I think the board should 100% look at whether it's policy or at least put a work group together. The concern is each smoke event is different, right? If the smoke blows in from a fire like it traditionally has, then our schools are probably better than anywhere else. And even if it's above what could be deemed a healthy rate, it might be the best place for kids to be, right? And so that's a challenge. Another challenge is, like we had seen on some snow days where we call an entire day and we could have been in school with just a 2-hour delay, right? And which leads to my conversation, the story that I told this morning is, Tuesday caught us a little off guard. I think we recognize when we have a burn somewhere close to the school, or even not, quite honestly, because there tends to be a pocket of inversion that happens when it's cold temperatures. If we close the outside air dampers, then it eliminates it drawing that air in and causing part of the problem. So part of the challenge is, but once it gets in, it's harder to get out once it gets in. So, and we've experienced that in the past, not because we've known the smoke is coming. We've had the outside air dampers with our you know, our filtration system running. And then when kids just come in the building, the smoke comes in and follows them in and then creates a haze. So there's challenges. So the real challenge, Tuesday did catch us a little bit. Wednesday we were ready for. I got up like a snow day, drove the campus 5:15 in the morning. The inversion had socked it in Pine Meadow Estate and over the Forest Service building. Went home, checked my, okay, we're good. We don't have to worry about a 2-hour delay because I was, you know, with the burn off, it would typically do that. It's what it did the day before. With the forecast, that was probably an appropriate call if there was a problem. Went home, showered, and I'm like, well, I was in the buildings at the end of the day. I just better go back to the buildings and walk through it, you know, 6:45, see what that's like. By the time we got back at 6:45, the wind had changed. The middle school was engulfed. The other two schools weren't. Actually, it was blue skies at the high school still. And within 45 minutes of that, it had pretty much burnt off. And so I think the challenge there is if we have a set, and to be clear, we do not have an outdoor air, that's set by the OSAA. That's not our policy. We do not have an air quality policy inside or outside. That is the OSAA guidelines that we follow about being outside and heavy, you know, exertion, kids on a playground running and breathing in deeply. And so I think those are the challenges. I think it's a good thing to have really good dialogue on, but I have some concerns about around the executive order from the governor about our class time and what that could look like in an extended school year situation if we have more opportunities to miss and what those requirements will mean to us. And that being said, 100% safety is our first concern, right? I mean, I look around, my kids have all graduated now, but in 11 years, 10 of those, I always had a kid in one of the buildings, right? I was making those decisions a lot as a parent. We have administrators who have kids in our building, right? We are taking the best information we can and making those decisions. Maybe there's a better way to do it, and that is worth discovering. I have some concerns about what that means, because that's more than the weather. That's such a variable and how it ebbs and flows and can come and go. I mean, we learned a lot. I'll say the cornerstone of that, however, is just like in inclement weather, our partnership with people. And our conversation is always, if you think it's a problem, then go. Right. And we've always supported that. We haven't not supported that. Whether that we had some staff members that felt it wasn't, everybody is impacted by air quality differently. Right? Some are way more sensitive than others, especially folks who are asthmatic and have other concerns. And so, we adjusted and accommodated for that. And that's the partnership. Again, the board is the policy division of this kind of, and so I think whatever happens, I just want to be mindful about both sides of what that could look like in a calendar. And if we had 3 or 4 snow days and 3 or 4 smoke days, right? We've just extended our calendar quite a bit. Yeah, I mean, anyway, and that's not a reason not to be safe. I'm not saying that, but again, what does that look like? And so I think it'll be a great discussion. But there, I think concerns that we heard from, as I expressed this morning, we heard from the one who said there was 600, which it wasn't possibly 600 in the building, right? That was not an accurate statement. But then we also had people who said it's worse in my home, right? And so, and this was a very targeted inversion with where it impacted, unlike some of the other events we've had. So I think it's a great conversation, and whatever the board decides, we will do, obviously. But I think it's a complex problem to try to tackle. And oftentimes creating policy around such complex things can also have an adverse impact as well. Again, I do not want to 100%. We want to be safe. We want to be partners. All that stuff, but just it's a complicated issue. So, I will also, say that I spent a lot of time circulating through the buildings, talking to folks, right? And again, not to, I don't want to sound like I'm rationalizing, but most of our folks understand that this is a part of Central Oregon, right? It actually, some cited the 2015 bond that I talked about. It's where I got that when I commented this morning in the superintendent's copy is we were all moving boxes and people back into their classrooms in 2016 with the construction of the elementary school. And we were dealing with a heavy smoke day. We were all moving boxes and they were putting that dang finish down on the bathrooms, which over to it, which was an interesting, so I think it's a great conversation. I would be interested to see what direction we're headed. So, and know that, we're trying to do our due diligence to make the best decisions, for the district. And, tonight we'll be shutting the dampers down. So, and tomorrow it's not supposed to be below freezing. It's supposed to be, the low is 43. So that inversion, even if it does happen, shouldn't be as pronounced and prominent. So we should be okay, especially if it doesn't happen on top of all of our buildings.
Excuse me.
I think I would just leave it at that. I think it's a great conversation and something we should look into. And then the board can get information and decide which way we move forward. So.
I was gonna ask a question, but I think I'm choking.
Yeah, so I would encourage the board to, whether it's I talked about potentially a committee getting together to do some work, bring some research, look at what that looks like. I think it's a great conversation to keep having, and like I said, if it turns into a policy, then we'll the good thing about a policy is the board can also modify the policy along the way, right? If we discover that something is maybe not where it should be, the board can then change that policy and adjust. So I think there's, opportunities to engage, get good feedback, look at the data, and then for the board to make that decision. So, selfishly to some degree, black and white would be easier for me. I mean, honestly, if it was X and that's it, that makes it, it's not like the snow days, right? It's same thing. It's, so I see both pros and cons of it. Which I think is a great discussion. So, I'm gonna leave it at that because we still got a lot of agenda, to go through.
The only question I was going to ask is, there are three separate major buildings, and so if there's an issue in one and you have to take care of one building, you basically have to cancel all three schools because of busing.
Well, it'd also be the dynamic of if we canceled with one with such a tight campus, why wouldn't we? Other busing is an issue. So it does create other dynamics with that we have to look at. I'm not saying we couldn't in a half day.
Has that ever happened?
We could bus kids and then come back and bus. It depends on when that happened and when the note, usually it takes us about, knowing this because of maybe it started snowing on a day it was when I didn't think it was going to snow. I'm like, how long does it take us to get the buses going and get kids home? It's about a 2-hour turnaround to get drivers called in, to get the buses. Takes us about 2 hours to get the buses in place to start delivering kids home. So then there's a window of, does it make sense by the time we realize that the snow's not going to stop or the weather pattern shifted and it's hitting us harder than we thought? Like at one instance, we had an hour and that didn't make any sense to mobilize when it would have been an hour difference. They were coming in an hour anyway. So there's all kinds of challenges around it, but again, I think it's a great that there's pros and cons. I'm interested to hear where it goes and what the thought process is. I think it's a great discussion. And like I said, if there's a policy, it could alleviate some of my stress. Well, it'll be a different stress. Then it'll be finding how do we make up days potentially, allegedly, potentially, maybe. All right. I'm just gonna leave it at that. That's enough. Good conversation. I always think 11 years that I'm not gonna see something new. We got something new. Smoke over 3 buildings and that's it. Nowhere else. So.
District asset update?
I don't really have anything to report other than we're still in permit process, waiting for those to final out. I did, it is a long process of even getting legal counsel on board to, so I'm in consultation with legal counsel about some responses that we talked about. So that process is going slow. Permits are in, we're waiting to hear. I think the earliest we would probably hear on is the rezone to residential. I think that paperwork is furthest along. So we'll see what happens there. As soon as I have an update and information, I'll pass it on. But we're still in that in the process. And again, the process is multifactored from the survey, the paperwork. There's multiple sets of permits to put in, the lot line adjustment, and the change of use. So we're working on all pieces.
Great.
Yeah.
So Senate Bill, board business, Senate Bill 3.
Yes.
This is the.
So I'll have Steve jump in a little bit. So we're looking for the board to approve a waiver. So Senate Bill 3 was the change in the social studies requirements that also included personal finance. There was some feeling like personal finance was going to be called microeconomics and included in the 3 credits of social studies required. The state has decided that's not the case. And so the waiver is just to be safe that we have a little more of a runway to make sure that we're meeting that requirement. That I think Steve said there's maybe a half a dozen kids that he might have to upheaval a schedule, but it's about with our reductions in force and hiring and giving us a little bit of a runway to prepare for 100% stamp that every kid got that. And again, we're not the only district that's going to put in. And if we put in, as Steve said, they may still deny us, but we can.
Yeah, so part of it is victims of, to a degree, of trying to be thorough in the first place. So there's districts all over the state that are doing versions of the requirement that, don't necessarily rise to like an actual standalone class. And when the requirements first came out, we kind of were committed to, let's not miss an opportunity here, especially with the careers piece. And that was something that we knew that we needed to shore up, particularly in 10th grade. And so we went all in on trying to have all, actual standalone classes. And then it becomes a little bit of a shell game on where are we getting FTE to be able to do those things. And then, personal finance has historically always been available as a social studies elective. And so now we just need to, we've got a huge chunk of our kids are already across the finish line on the front of having done the requirements. But this will give us a little bit of time to work with the ones, that aren't there. And also the biggest piece is looking at whether or not we now have to be creative. The FTE situation is always a bit of a zero-sum game. It's not like the more FTE is not coming in this next year, we've actually reduced. And so now we've just got to figure out, can we sustain what we thought we were going to be able to sustain, or do we need to now look at perhaps doing something standards-based with the careers class? I know Summit High is doing like a Canvas shell that kids can chip away at over time. And then, in the spirit of, continuing a moving target, now the state is also yielding on some of the CTE courses where you can embed it. Like, for example, we have health occupations or the health science careers class. And, Sam Pasley, our teacher, was just in our program and study meeting yesterday, and they were talking about opportunities to potentially leverage that course to be able to meet the career standards. So all this to say that if they accept our waiver, it'll be, it'll just give us some breathing room to regroup and say, can we still commit to the model we thought we were going to do? And if they say no, then we'll be seniors will have a social studies elective added to their schedule, which isn't lost on me. If you're one of the seniors that's got their year all planned out to the T, then that's going to be a little bit of something to, a little bit of a pill to swallow. But
and again, part of that game changer is, again, the rules always seem to change slightly. If we can embed the careers piece into the CTE programs, it's also something we could have been promoting with kids as an opportunity to get 2 things off their plate at once and bolstered some programs.
Yeah, and in the same, by the same token, we've had really good feedback, particularly from the juniors that took the career class. Yeah. It's been a really good moment in their day to just, unplug from typical kind of academic rigor and dive into something that feels super relevant. And so it's not that we don't want to do a standalone, but ultimately it's you have to start choosing between, which things ultimately becomes programmatic if it trickles too far.
And the same thing happens. We got to observe a personal finance class, and one of the kids actually is running his own business, who was in there, and he was. Well, our teacher was running the class, but boy, he was like the teacher's aide he was telling them all the payroll taxes, what you had to do. I mean, it was,
and that's frankly good for peers to see.
Yes.
Yeah, absolutely.
And when they're in a class that's dedicated to it. So we're not forsaking that opportunity, but we just want to be able to plan and try to be creative should they accept that.
So we need the board to take action approving us applying for the waiver. And then
the criteria is very narrow. The criteria is basically related to, do we have the FTE to be able to do all the things? And right now we would sort of have to pick between having enough social studies electives or doing the
standalone classes.
How much time does it give us?
Oh, the waiver's due on July 1st, so just turn it around as soon.
No, he means
Oh.
what, it's just.
Oh, it's just for 1 year.
Yeah.
So
26,
we
27.
and part of, yeah, so I believe part of the waiver is, projecting out to say, what's your plan kind of moving forward, so.
So it would just basically affect the seniors next year.
Yeah, next year's seniors. In fact, our 10th graders, a lot of them have already met the careers credit. For them, it would be having flexibility on when the personal finance fits into their, to what would have been a social studies elective offering, but now will be a standalone.
And I will say, Lauren and I were actually in a meeting where, well, you weren't in my group, I don't think, for this discussion, but there are some school districts that still think personal finance is a part of the social studies credit. And then we're surprised to find out at the meeting we're at that it wasn't. So.
Yeah, we'd rather address it now and give ourselves a little bit of bandwidth to deal with it. And like I said, if we get rejected, then we have, we can plan for that. But it will be a hardship given that it's not just that we're reducing it happens to be true that part of where we had planned to reduce was in humanities, thinking that we could.
Sure.
That we're there. So.
I would move that we agree to file a waiver for Senate Bill 3. All in favor?
Aye.
That was easy.
So that'll just be something that in our application, we just record the date of the board meeting when it was approved and and I think they get them, I was told it's sometimes like a 2 or 3 week turnaround, so it could be as early as the next board meeting that we know. They don't wait till after the deadline though. It's a rolling kind of approval process is from what I understand. Thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
If it's okay with you, I'd like to take 3 minutes before we go into executive session,
Yeah.
just because I am hacking right now.
Yeah.
If that's okay, that's a personal issue.
I guess.
Okay,
Okay, so we'll recess for, is 3 minutes long enough?
Yeah, or should we just, why don't we come back at 7:20?
Okay.
Yeah.
7:20. 3 minutes. Our regular board session is back in session. Sorry, I'm getting tired of slurring. All right, so we have 2 board business to deal with that require action. The first one being a complaint against a staff member. So I move that we hear the staff member during an executive session.
here's the complaint.
Hear the complaint.
Yeah.
I second that.
And you would also, I would say, request that the board approve you as the point of contact to work with council to set up the structure of that hearing.
And that the board approves me as a point of council to set up the structure of that hearing.
I second that motion.
All in favor, say aye.
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 All not in favor? I think that was it unanimous. Okay. The second thing of item of action is the superintendent contract approval. I move that as discussed and described in our executive session, we approve Superintendent Scholl's contract as discussed.
I'll say, okay.
All in favor?
Aye.
Say
Aye.
Aye. Great. Any announcements? Yes, consent agenda.
I move we approve the consent
I
agenda.
second.
All in favor? Aye. Announcements, June 3rd, regular board meeting and budget hearing. And that is all for this evening.
Just as a follow-up, there will be communication about the hearing date, so board will affirm that. We have to give 3 days prior notice whenever that is. And then again, as mentioned, ASA will work with council to set up the structure. So that's the logistics of how we get to wherever that date is. So there'll be some information coming out to you guys so we can set a date.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you. So I guess I'm going to be in contact with you. It's tomorrow.
Yeah, I'm on a plane all day going to Georgia.
So I won't call you tomorrow.
But I mean, you can call me at some point.
Why don't you call me?
Yeah, I will. And I'll let Melinda know.
Yeah.
We're moving forward.
Yeah, I think that's. And it's that's why we're here.
Yeah, 5:20 flight.
Yeah, it is on the.
Yeah, well, you might as well just
I know.
go to the airport.
Yeah.
That's what my son said. He goes, it's not
May 6th evening.
early enough that I can just stay up. I'm like, okay, because then I could try to sleep on the plane.
At all you
We did that 5:20 flight for 10 years.
Oh, yeah, I know you did.
All right, thank you, guys.
Thank you, thanks
Yep.
everyone for the late night.
Yeah.
Did you see that Melissa stole us or something?
Yeah, I know, pretty sad. Yeah, it's really sad, because even my son was sad. Yeah, he was super sad.
What was that about?
Mrs. Stoll has been said.
Yeah. So the Fiddle Club.
It sounds like she might still do the club.
Yeah. She's gonna work on another dynamic.
Yeah. So, but she does science, right?
Yes.
Yeah, so he was bummed he wouldn't have her as a science teacher,
Good night, everyone.
but
Yeah,
it sounds like she's gonna continue Fiddle Club,
Okay, wow,
so
that would be amazing.
that's my